Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Latest in Travel podcast by Guestcentric. I'm really excited to have on this episode Rob Hornman, who is a seasoned hospitality executive and former CEO of Fleming's Hotels, where he recently oversaw a collection of 12 distinctive properties across Germany, Austria, and beyond. With an impressive career spanning roles at Accor, World Hotels, and HRS Group, Rob has led transformative projects in global sales, commercial strategy, and operational excellence over the years. So it's really great to have you, Rob. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Melissa. It's an honor to be there. You make me sound very important, but I'm just a normal, simple Dutch guy that has had a bit of an international journey in what I believe is the nicest business to be in, and that's the hospitality and tourism business.
Great. And for those who might be watching or tuning in and might not know very much about you, do you mind diving a little bit deeper into your experiences over the years, what you've been up to in our industry, and your journey so far?
Sure. Right. The journey started, about 30 years ago in Amsterdam as a young hospitality professional, starting to become a professional. So that's what I've been doing all my life, hotel business. Started in Amsterdam, did some short half a year traineeship in Switzerland as well, but basically the early years were in Amsterdam. But then in 1995, I actually left the Netherlands for a exciting start of an international career, and I had the opportunity to join the Accor group in Jakarta, Indonesia, and I was, like I said, 28 years old. I had the opportunity to run my first hotel as a general manager, which happened to be the very first Ibis hotel in Jakarta, Indonesia. So the very first Ibis hotel in Asia at all. I didn't open it, but I took it over from the general manager that opened it. There I was coming from a very nice 5-star hotel in Amsterdam. I thought I knew everything, and I realized very quickly that I didn't. And but the great thing was I discovered Asia. I discovered the place in the world where, especially in Southeast Asia, where hospitality is in the genes of people. And it was a fantastic adventure. I went there together with my wife Amanda. We started our basically our journey together over there, and from Jakarta I moved to from being in hotel operations as a general manager. I ended up in sales and marketing because I was one of these general managers that was always complaining about, that things should be done different, and sales should do a better job and marketing should do a better job. And then at some stage they said to me, Rob, if you all know it so well, why don't you do it yourselves? This was a long time ago, and that's how easy it went maybe in those days. But it was very interesting because this was pre-internet, pre-everything, so it was hardcore sales and basically being outside on the streets, bringing cakes and muffins, as I used to say, going knocking on doors, and after my responsibility for Indonesia, I later on it was Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and later on I took over the responsibility for all of Asia. So that was really great. I moved from Jakarta to Bangkok, and I had a role to oversee the entire Asian region, which was from Tokyo, China, the entire China, Japan, and Southeast Asia up to India. which is great because I got to discover all these fantastic countries. And I had the opportunity to be part of the pioneering team of Accor going into China and basically doing lots of first things, in for Accor in Asia, which is great. And then at some stage, I thought it would be good to go back to Europe. We started a young family in 2001 in Bangkok. Our first child was born, and I thought it would probably be healthy for us to not grow up in an expatriate environment. We had the opportunity to get a real nice job in Paris at the headquarters of Accor. And so somewhere in 2003, 2004, we moved to Paris, which is also not a bad city and I had a role of being in charge of global field sales and business development. So it was my role to basically connect the international sales divisions with the country sales divisions. So I had all of a sudden a global role, and I knew so well from my Asian experience, the intra-regional sales, but also how difficult it was to get your share of the business being a receiving country. So that was basically the role that I was having, being in charge of the international sales at Accor, connecting all the regions. So I got to discover the US, I got to discover South America, all of the European countries, on top of the Asia Pacific world that I knew already. So then things went fast. Accor was doing a special joint venture, or not, an investment in a German company, and they asked me whether I was willing to run the commercial part of that venture. So relatively quickly after starting up a life in Paris, having my second child, our second child was born in Paris. We were asked to help on this project in Germany, and so I moved to Munich, and that's actually must have been about 20 years ago, where I started doing my first activities in Germany, and I didn't really manage to escape. I tried to escape many times, but a lot of Germany is a very dynamic country, a very important country in Europe, as you all know. And basically, I had the chance to run the commercial part of this joint venture between Accor and Orient Hotels. And after that project was finished, I wanted to go back in operation, and I had the opportunity to run Sofitel, the luxury brand of Accor, which was just completely redefined and recreated. So that's what I did until 2008. Meanwhile, I had my third child in Munich, so we had Bangkok, Paris, and Munich. Three beautiful children, one girl, two boys, and something was starting to grow in me that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, and I had the opportunity to step into a private equity adventure and to be able to run a company called World Hotels, which is basically a collection of independent hotels that were looking for sales and marketing and commercial support. That's what I started doing in 2008, and I did that until 2013, 2014. Very exciting time, very difficult time, because 2008 was also the start of the global financial crisis. So, but we managed, to really help the hotels in providing them a one-stop shop for commercial solutions, a website, distribution, GDS connectivity, for the hotels to be able to stand out and to compete with the international hotel brands that were basically growing and are still growing very much in the places where the independent hotels tried to survive. And this was very interesting, because that's where I really learned the independent hotels. That's where I really learned, because I was always so focused on the chain business, comparing Accor with the concepts of Hilton and Marriott, etc. But discovering this unique and very special independent business, that was really something very important to me, and that I think, the best hotels, and if you look at any top, maybe it has changed anymore a little bit, because there's now a lot of collection brands from the international hotel chains. But not so long ago, you could take any top 10 listing, whether it was from TripAdvisor or whether it was from the Condé Nast list, and any top 10, you would find a majority of not chain hotels, but independent hotels.
Yeah.
Power of and the class and the quality in international hotel business that has grown because of the independent hotels and not because of the chain hotels. The chain hotels have mostly helped us to develop standards and operating procedures, but the experience and the uniqueness, that's what you find in independent hotels. And that was an eye-opener for me. And I visited so many hotels, and there were so many very proud owners who let their daughter or son show me around in the hotel that they have built up over multiple generations. And that was great. So that was a great experience that I had. After that, I did some advisory work. So I chose to be an independent hotel advisor, having a little boutique advisory firm. That's also the moment where I moved to Portugal, which is about 10 years ago, and where I fell in love with this beautiful country. And after that, I had about a 2-year project at the HRS group in Germany. I was in charge first of the hotel side of the business, and I was also chief commercial officer. But I did a lot of global supplier relationships, so making sure that again there's a good portfolio of hotels, good balance between independents and chain hotels. And then in 2021, in the middle of COVID, I was asked by good friends of mine, of family that owns a lot of hotel real estate in Germany. And they asked me if I was ready to help them to run the company, Fleming's Hotels. And that's what I've been doing since 2021, March until November 2024. And that's where I have spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of passion in recreating the Fleming's brand and redeveloping, especially after all these difficult times that we had to deal with during the pandemic. That's where I had my one of my greatest and proudest achievements, running this small privately owned company, which was very unique because this company was all the hotel real estate is privately owned by this family. So that makes obviously most of the hotel businesses are renting or leasing their real estate, but in this case it was very unique because it was all privately owned. And again, in these challenging times, it's a big burden to own hotels, but it also helps and it gives you a bit more flexibility maybe in trying to survive in a place. And we were business hotels, and we were talking the other day about Portugal and the Portuguese hotel business. Portugal is living from tourism for a majority, and growing figures, and that's not necessarily the case when you go to the business hotels in the Benelux or in the UK or in Germany. So that's it's a completely different world, a completely different challenge in the current situation of tourism and travel.
That's really interesting, and quite a lot of adventures and varied experience. I'm interested to know, sort of based on your experiences managing on like the franchise level, but then also versus more like the independent collection side. What sort of, in your experiences, have you seen like as being, I don't know, I guess. What are the different needs? How do they differ? And how should the approaches to like sales and marketing like differ between each kind of segment, like between the franchises versus the independent properties and collection side? in your experience?
In the end, we're all dealing with the same customer, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are an independent hotel or a chain hotel, but it's your ability to reach your guest. And in 30 years ago, 40 years ago, people chose to so the traveler, they chose an international brand when they were traveling to Dubai or to Mumbai or to Shanghai or to Tokyo, because they didn't feel comfortable choosing anything else, because they wanted to have this security of quality and an international standard. That's why they booked automatically the brands that they knew. Today, or since the last 15, 20 years, that has changed significantly, because with internet arriving and basically consumers writing about their experiences in these hotels, it is very easy to find out if a hotel is good or not. So you don't need that international standard anymore from a international hotel chain. You really have the opportunity to discover, even if you go to a place where you've never been, in the middle of Eastern Africa or South America or wherever you have never been, maybe. You can find out the quality of a hotel, and you can choose to stay there without having spoken to them, without having been to the place. You can just check out a place, take the risk to make a booking. I do that very often, because you can discover great things. I come from a time where we used to have mystery shoppers. People big list through the hotel, and they would write a report for you to see how the quality of your hotel was. Today, we don't need it in that form anymore, because it's on a daily basis. You get guests reviewing your hotel, and not just their stay, but the entire guest journey, the entire customer journey, from the searching and the booking and the entire experience in the hotel. So the commercial approach completely different, right? So you need to you have access, but you need to be able to be visible. So when people do a search for a destination, they say, okay, I want to stay in the south of Bordeaux, let's take the example. They want to stay in a place in Porto, and they search. They've never been to Porto, and they search to get a list of hotels. But on the top of the Google search, there is an OTA, there is Booking.com, there is Expedia. Most of the time, in our case, in Europe, it's Booking.com. So they're basically taking the best spaces away from even from the chain hotels. Also, the chain hotels, they are very dependent on the still, despite the fact that they have millions and millions of their own loyalty members, still they are traveling. They are also getting a lot. A not insignificant part of OTA business. So in order to be visible, especially for the transient business, you need to find ways to be visible and bookable. The days where you were writing contracts and agreements for individual corporate contracts, or individual even tour operator or leisure contracts, that has changed significantly. And that's the challenge that you have. And that's between being part of a very big network as a franchise hotel, carrying one of the big international brands, or the independent hotel. That's where you have the challenge to be able to get in front of that customer, to get in front of that guest, to be able to get them to stay at your hotel.
And in your experience, what would be some of your recommendations for independent hotels to kind of solve, or to look at those challenges and maybe turn them into opportunities to help their business, or ways that they can, even though they might not be prioritized, for instance, in the search results, how can they really, I guess on an online perspective, encourage guests to book with them, and to stand out from, the other competitors in this field, not just the intermediaries, but other other properties and so on?
If you have lots of money, right, you can make sure that you are on top of the natural search ranking, the organic search ranking. But that's the reason why there's only a very few online travel agencies left, is that because nobody can afford it anymore to spend the same amount of money that platforms like Booking.com are spending to be able to be on top. So it is very hard to be able to do that purely by investing on ranking. So what you need to do, you need to make sure that first of all, you have to a very unique story to tell. You need to know what's the story of your hotel. What's your story about? What's your purpose? What's your why? What makes your hotel so special? And then around that, you need to create a story. You need to create a story in such a way also that when people are speaking about your hotel, they know what's so special about your hotel. Not just, okay, well, this is this hotel in that location. And that means that you need to create and define the kind of hotel that where you want to be. And when people have stayed in your hotel, they should be able to, when they speak about you, they should remember certain things. And you have all been in meetings, in conferences, and boring meeting rooms, and you come home and people ask you, or your friends or family are asking you, so how was your day? Yeah, I was having a meeting in hotel XYZ. And very often you cannot even remember the hotel because it was such a non-unique experience, because it's basically a commodity being in a meeting room. It's a commodity being in a hotel bed, in a hotel room, etc. So if you are able to find ways to create a certain uniqueness about this hotel experience, not just the guest room and not just the check-in, but also the other areas, for example, the meeting room, then you will be able to stand out. And if you, on top of that, can make sure that on your website, you create a good story about that. So you make sure that people are speaking about you. You are using influencers to write about you. You are using fresh content. There's a lot of things are event driven. A lot of the travelers are traveling because of events. They are traveling because there's something very special happening. There's a special concert, or there's a special event, or there's a special restaurant. All these kind of things are very trendy at the moment. So people are having a lot of purpose driven travel. You have to make sure that when people are looking for hotels close to those events or close to these special places, you need to make sure that on the content that is existing online of your hotel, you are talking about these experiences. So when people are looking for Rock in Rio hotels, Lisbon, right? You can create a great story about Rock in Rio because your hotel is maybe not so far away, or even, and I've seen some great examples of that, why not create some Rock in Rio rooms in your, some very specific themed rooms for this special event? We did have some PR about it. So Google starts sensing some very unique content about your hotel related to these specific events. And these are all the kind of things that are helping you as an independent hotel to be able to stand out against the competitors that you have around you, that very often have huge reservation systems behind you that you will never be able to take advantage from unless you decide to become a franchise hotel.
Yeah, all very good points. Sort of circling back, because there was something that you told me before actually our conversation, that you said that you have a strong belief that the people make the place, and I really agree with that. Not only in terms of like the destination, but also even like the businesses that you buy from, whether it's a hotel, any industry. And sort of looking back, I guess, on your experiences and your, working in the very diverse range of markets and then also traveling quite extensively. How has have there been any specific, I guess, experiences that have inspired the work that you do? Whether you we're visiting a hotel as a guest or visiting a destination as a guest, but also in managing these markets and working with people from diverse cultures and backgrounds? Mm.
Well, yeah, I think first of all, like you said, I mean, I think people make places, and that was one of the mottos that we had at Fleming's Hotels. People are buying from people, and people are defining whether they like a place or not by the people who are there. As I said in the beginning, my Asian years, they were very crucial for my personal development because of the way, especially in Southeast Asia and Thailand and in Indonesia, Philippines, the hospitality being in the genes, and basically having been able to have these fantastic experiences. Not every culture and country is having this natural sense of hospitality. So obviously that has inspired me a lot, and I've seen a lot of great things coming from there. And I think we have everybody who has lived and worked or has experience in that part of the world. You take things with you that you are able to bring to other places, and it's, I think what is so important is that we when we talk about people creating these experiences, we have such a great opportunity by putting experience first and by putting people first, because during the years where the hotel industry was developing, when all the big hotel brands were exported, they were exported by very high levels of standardization.
Yeah.
And very high levels of standardizations were not necessarily making it a nicer experience. It was, how often have you checked into a hotel where there's somebody at the front desk who is barely looking at you because they are looking into their computer screen?
Yeah.
They basically, they need to have your passport, and they ask for your passport, they see your name, and then they say, "Hello, Ms. Rodriguez, great
I've
that you're
been here before."
how was your trip?" And that's not how it should be. So I think there's been huge changes in this part where successful companies, and there's one company who's really the master in this, and they really started with this, is Citizen M in coming from Amsterdam, in my home country. They were the first ones really being able to put not process first, but experience first. So you put experience before process. You are being kind to somebody before you start thinking about what I need to do over here, right? What I need to do to check this person in. So I walk in, I see you, or you walk in, I stand behind the front desk here, and I tell you, "Hey, great to see you. How was your trip? Oh, I see that you just came outside and it has been raining." Or you seem maybe stressed. So first thing I do is I do something that's coming from my heart and not from a checklist, right? And I think that's what has changed very much, putting experience in front of process. I think that's critical and that's key in everything that we do. And especially in the days where maybe not so many people are going for education in hospitality, and not everybody is having maybe the technique to be able to do the things we do in hotels and restaurants. It doesn't matter. We recruit now based on attitude. People who are, who just like to look after people, who like to be kind. And as, of course, you cannot always have the perfect casting in a hotel because, not everybody is having this in their genes, but you can infect the people. You can basically put some Tinkerbell powder on people by basically positively infecting the people with this sense of hospitality. And you need to help your teams with that by writing down what you do, not by standardizing, but writing down what you do, why you do the things that you do. So why are we why are we creating the rooms? Why we have created in the way we are creating the rooms? Why do we have why do we have such a special story about this hotel? What is the story about this hotel? And if the people are able to talk proud about these kind of things, then you create a completely different atmosphere. And the great thing is just related to the personal relationship you have as a manager with your teams, right? I think we as managers and the people who are in the hotels, they should not think in the traditional way of hierarchy. We should, we are working all. There's also something that was very, very well described by one of the founders from Citizen M, Michael Levy. He's always talking about we have an org chart that is always like this, right? So we have important people in the top, great people in the top, and then we have this pyramid like this. But actually, we should turn it around because and basically all the people that are directly in the guest contact, we should make sure that from the bottom we support them. We call that stewardship. We support them to be able to. We give them whatever they need to give the guests that desired guest experience that you want to give based on the hotel that you want to be. And that's why all of these kind of small elements they are contributing to these unique experiences that are 100% driven by the hardware, this type of hardware, and not by the hardware of how nice your sofa is or how when your last renovation was. Because I've stayed in hotels that were maybe not the newest hotels, but they were having the highest scores just because of the way the service was basically being given to the guests.
Yeah, and in the end of the day, I mean, we hear so much about, personalization and how, guests want personalization and things like that. And I think like in some ways it's maybe been conflated with, technology and what you need to do in this sense and that sense to personalize the guest experience. But fundamentally, it's actually having that empathy with the guests and, I don't know, connecting with them on more of a human level. You touched on some interesting points as well, and it kind of made me think a little bit about I guess following, the pandemic and things like that, like in certain markets, there's been sort of this resounding challenge about, staff shortages and things like that. And do you think it's down to like the industry needing to motivate people a little bit better to get into this type of field? And if so, what would be your recommendations to motivate people to really invest and see like a really long-term future in hospitality and really give it their best and have like a passion for it?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has been a wake-up call to many industries, and very much to ours. There's a lot of people have disappeared. We don't know where they went, but all of a sudden we had this staff shortage. But it's a combination of staff shortage, but also the fact that everything went so well that we didn't really have to look very much at our efficiencies and our profitability. And so on one side, of course, it's a pity that we have to work harder to attract talent. It's not a pity. Sorry, it's a pity that we have less people available, and it's a good thing that we have to work harder to attract talent. And I think, as we were just saying, how important it is, how crucial people are for our business. We have to pay them better. We have to look after them. We have to attract and retain. And we can only retain talent by developing them and by making it attractive to stay and giving opportunities and giving people the chances to develop themselves. And that means that in the early 2000s, the most important person maybe in a hotel was the revenue manager. I tell you, the most important person right now in a hotel are the people responsible for people. We don't recruit anymore. When we do a job interview, it's not a one-way job interview anymore. I have done job interviews with people, even, I really want to have for our company very good hotel school trainees. And I was also basically being interviewed. I was selling my spot because I knew hotel school students, they can choose, especially if they are coming from very very big good hotel schools. They can choose wherever they go. And I have myself, as a CEO of the company, I've participated in the recruiting process, and I have sold us as a very attractive company for this trainee to become a trainee. So it's not just a trainee basically being interviewed, it's the interview is going in two directions. And I've done that for every important senior position within our company. I have been part of that process because I wanted to tell the story of Flemings. I wanted to tell the story of what we were working on and what we were building, what we were creating. So this is extremely important, that the importance of people, the development of people, and basically making them part of the journey, that is crucial and more important than ever before. That's one side. The other side is what I mentioned, where things have been going so well that we were not really looking at the efficiency of our business. We were having people standing around. We were maybe not using the technology in the right way to be able to be more efficient, right? We were maybe buying things too expensive, by buying too expensive ingredients, importing things from far away, forgetting that we have around us, if we do local sourcing, we maybe have the best product. We don't always need to have papaya on our breakfast buffet, right? There's locally, you can find fantastic seasonal fruit and elements. So every disadvantage has an advantage. We have learned that we need to rethink our business and rethink our operation, making sure that we have the best people, and the people that we have, we need to look after, we need to attract, retain, and develop. And on the other side, bring in efficiencies to be able to be profitable, because with the collective labor agreements that I had to deal with in the last few years, there were planned salary increases over multiple years, up to 18%, 18% in 3 years, which is great for the staff, and they definitely deserve it. But if in the end I cannot make money anymore as a hotel, then something is wrong. In the end, it is a business, and it needs to have a certain return on investment, needs to have a certain profitability, and that's the part that I think is so very important, that you need to be ready to re-engineer your operation, be very smart, make sure that every square meter in your hotel is bringing revenue, and you need to really embrace technology, and there where technology can bring the added value, you should allow that, because you want to give your teams and your people a sustainable future, and you don't want to run an operation that is not sustainable and that will have to close down.
Yeah. You touched on technology, and actually this is something I would be very interested to get your feedback on. But I think it's there's so much noise out there in terms of, like, there's so many providers, there's so much like solutions and new trends, I guess, and things that pop up, like AI or different things like that. But like, from your side as a hotelier, and like from your perspective, what would be some practical ways that you would suggest hotels evaluate where those gaps are, and how technology can actually add the value to their business and their operations?
it's first of all, it's not new. We've been having all these revolutions, right? There was the internet revolution, and then we had cable internet, then we had Wi-Fi, and we used to have traditional ovens in the kitchen, and then we had convection ovens, etc. So there's always been that development, even though on the front in the hotel nothing has really changed, right? If you take a picture of a hotel 30 years ago, right, the hotel lobby is still pretty much looking the same. There's still a reception desk where people check in. Luckily, there are meanwhile also hotels that are a little bit more efficient. They do the check-in in a different way without a barrier between the guest and the reception. And the hotel room, if you look at the hotel room, it has basically not changed. The TV is flat now, but 30 years ago it was a very big TV. Other than that, very little has changed. It's the not visible technology that has done a lot. Over the years, first distribution has changed when the GDS business started, which is which is crucial for our business for a very long time. And then afterwards, when the internet was coming, the way we present ourselves and the way we distribute ourselves has changed. And there was the revenue management, and now we all get very excited about artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. But we forget that revenue management that we have been using for many years is basically machine learning, right? It's basically it's a tool that is basically learning from historic data, and it's creating recommendations out of these historic data for the future. That's absolute machine learning, and that's nothing new. We've been doing that for a long time. We are looking at it a little bit differently than before, but still it is not such a huge innovation in the way it's described now. Of course, artificial intelligence is great, it's interesting. We can do lots of great things with it. But the difficulty as a hotel, especially as an independent hotel, is how do I deal with all of that is coming in front of me? And I have all these people contacting me, having this great story, and great salespeople who are having a very convincing story. And this is the challenge for the independent hotels. The technology, no matter what it is, whether it's distribution, whether it's the back of the house IT, etc. As we are looking for efficiencies, we need to make sure that we get the best possible solutions. As an independent hotel, I have one very important recommendation: never be a guinea pig. Don't start using something that has not been used by somebody else. I believe that all the systems that were created. If you are a small company, let the big guys try it first, and then you once a proof of concept is there, then you can adapt it. We were, for example, too early. A few years ago, I started using an AI tool for answering emails. People that I knew from the past in Germany, and they had this great idea, fantastic startup, fantastic artificial intelligence solution to be able to have automated email reply. We were too early because the AI tool wasn't yet ready, didn't have yet the knowledge and the experience to be able to give the answers that we needed, the sophisticated answers that we needed. So, and we were too small to be able to let that tool grow. So that again, even though I've been saying it for a long time, I made the mistake again myself by saying, "Oh, but this is so nice. I want to be the trailblazer in here. I want to be the first in this," but it doesn't make sense. We cannot in a small hotel or in a small hotel group. It's very hard to get the people who know to work with all these tools. So that's why it's important that you try and work with tools that are basically working somewhere else, to things that have been tested. and try to work with tools or with platforms that give you multiple solutions. So you have to not for every part of your solution speak with a different company and pay a different company and do the whole process of the account management with a different company. So that was one of the things that we did at the time at World Hotel, trying to find a solution that is a kind of a one-stop shop, or a maximum idea of a one-stop shop where you have people who have the expertise, who know what they're doing, and what you basically you do a big part of that at Guest-Centric, where you provide a suite of services where you as an individual hotel, you don't have to go through, I mean, you could go to 5 different companies for that, but you don't have the time and you don't have the expertise for that. And you have the risk that when one person that has been dealing with most of it is leaving, right, that you don't have the knowledge in the hotel to be able to maintain what was created. So I think that's, in terms of technology, that will be, I think the very important thing to consider. But you have to embrace the technology, and I think we talk a lot about digitalization and also things like digital check-in or self-check-in. We always speak about these things in the front, right?
Yep.
Because they are, we can relate to it. But there is a very big part in the back of the house, which is absolutely significant. And that's where you can really create a lot of efficiency and make a lot of money. That's when you talk about the technology in your hotel that is heating and cooling your hotel, and the entire back of the house systems that are costing a lot of energy. I mean, there's fantastic modern technology solutions that can really help you saving significant amounts of money. But we don't, as hoteliers, that's the part that we don't really speak about too much, because we like to talk about the commercial part of things, and we like to talk about the guest part of the things. But this is an area where I strongly recommend hotels and hotel owners to really have a good look, because there's a lot of things to be gained over there.
Yeah, that's some good food for thought there. And I guess it's kind of one of those $1 million questions that, what should be the priorities, and how to evaluate that with all the noise that's out there. And there's so many, I guess, shiny new, technologies and solutions. But yeah, very interesting feedback. So thanks for that. I wanted to go a little bit into, because you spoke about it a bit briefly at the beginning and a bit throughout our conversation. But kind of like about your experience with Fleming's Hotels, because I thought that story was very interesting, and hearing it before, and I think it would be interesting to get sort of your perspective on like the story behind it, why you took that project on, what were some of your biggest highlights and learnings from that project.
Yeah, with pleasure. I met the first Fleming's hotel that I saw was in 2004. It was the very first hotel that the family behind Fleming's opened in Frankfurt. I was still in charge of Sofitel, and my general manager in Frankfurt said to me, "Okay, you should come and have a look, because here's a local independently owned hotel, and they have really done something cool." So basically, I went to see the hotel. I saw the uniqueness of the place, the way that the lobby was structured, already a very efficient and modern lobby with a bistro next to the check-in, very transparent hotel rooms with a glass shower in the middle of the room. So a very unique way of doing a very nice hotel in a destination, Frankfurt, where there were basically mostly boring traditional hotels. So this hotel was really standing out. So Fleming's managed to grow over the years, and they were really, for those days, very unique, very cutting edge. When I started my first advisory business, one of my first clients was actually Fleming's, and we did a workshop. Where we were basically having creating multiple groups, and each group had to write down what the brand Flemings stand for. So they all did that in 4 groups, and they all wrote down on a pinboard and on flip charts, etc. And then afterwards, they had to present to each other what their definition of the brand Flemings was. And it were 4 to 80%. 20% was more or less the same, but 80% was completely different. So there was a complete different understanding by the people who were working every day in these hotels what the brand was standing for. So very successful brand, quality hotels, fantastic, the best locations you can imagine. But as a result of its own success, basically it lost the cutting edge. And one of the things that triggered me to when I was asked to run the company was that the son of the owner, so basically the chairman of the company who was involved in the business, he had the ideas to recreate the vision of his father, and his father was having the vision of the ideal hotel, and he had it very clearly in mind, and that was basically very close to how he created his first Flemings hotel. And his son, later on, when his father already passed away, etc., he basically created. He said, "Okay, the ideal hotel, the ideal hotel is a place even better than home." And with that theme, the ideal hotel and a place even better than home. Basically, that was the basics of how we redefined what the brand was standing for, and that was basically what was making the on top of obviously the post-pandemic challenges that we had, that was making it was hard, but it's also very interesting to run a company in these difficult times. But at the same time, being able to redefine and recreate a brand and create a blueprint of what the brand stands for, and then putting that to life together with the people in the hotels. Even we changed it. We changed it. We turned it around. We basically went in the hotels and we asked the majority of the staff members to redefine what Flemings should be about. And that was a very unique journey, because as a result of that, we recreated a successful brand that lost its cutting edge. We were not in a position to do huge investments, but we invested a lot of time in the people, in going to the hotels, explaining what we were going to do different, and bringing the proof of what we were going to do different. We redefined the brand. We created 7 brand pillars, and within these 7 brand pillars, we did something which is really very important. We created proof points. We created proof points to be able to say, okay, if we say one of our 7 brand pillars is best breakfast, what does that mean? What are the 10 points that are making this breakfast the best? Another point was around coffee, right? So now it was heavily breakfast and best coffee. So what are the 10 points that are making this a heavily breakfast? And why do we at Flemings have best coffee? And then we had the 10 points that were related to, or sometimes it was 15 and sometimes it was 10. And why did we do that? We wanted to make it concrete, so every person in the hotel could become a storyteller. It was not important that we didn't want to standardize something again, but we wanted to explain why the breakfast was a heavily breakfast and why the coffee was the best coffee. For example, we under the brand promise best coffee, we said, okay, every team member, everybody working in a hotel, no matter what job they have, they should be trained as a barista. So we basically changed, we trained everyone we gave everybody the opportunity to be trained as a barista, including myself. Very good at making espressos. I'm not so good in cappuccinos, but that created a story. So the people in our hotels, they were very proud about saying, I can make you an espresso, I can make you a coffee, because for Flemings, we have best coffee. So this is how you're making things concrete. In my life as a hotelier, especially in my commercial life, I visited many hotels. I did lots of competitor visits. And I always try to do them at moments when there's no salespeople around. because when there's salespeople around, they usually know how to sell their hotel. So I would go on a Sunday or at 8 o'clock at night or whatever. And you should try it. You'll be amazed when you go into a hotel that is carrying a brand or a story, and you ask for that person at the reception or anyone to show you the hotel and to show you a hotel room. And then you come into the hotel room and you ask the person who is showing you the room, so what is making this room a XYZ room? XYZ is the name of the brand. And half of the time, or no, 80% of the time, the person who's showing you the room is not able to tell whatever is special about that room, because a hotel room is a commodity. So unless you create a story about that room, unless you are creating a story about the bed or about the special coffee that you maybe have, or you have. I heard some great stories of hotels that have very sustainable new beds and with duvets that are made of recycled water bottles, etc. But that's a great story, and that's the story of the brand. And that's what people don't do. That's what people don't know. But if you are defining your brand, if you're creating your brand, and you're creating these new brand pillars for you, and you make a very clear blueprint out of this, what you want to be, and you make sure that your staff is being part of the story, then they will be able to tell you what is making this hotel room so good. And I have a very good, very recent example. Between Christmas and New Year, I stayed in one of the nicest resorts in Portugal. It's in Comporta.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do a commercial over here, but there's two very, 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 very nice hotels, but one is really the best. And I stayed there, and this was a perfect example of a hotel that has 100% nailed it. They have basically it's a Sublime hotel in Comporta. They have fantastic hardware, but they have really nailed it with their people. They have, I've seldomly had, and I've stayed in thousands of hotels, and I stay more than 150 room nights a year, probably, in hotels. But this is a very good example of what can make a hotel successful, but with very well trained and casted people, but people who are there, who love what they are doing and who are able to tell a story about the hotel. And that's making it a unique and very successful experience, where even somebody like me, who has probably seen everything, well, not everything, but a lot, I was really wowed by the experience in this hotel.
Nice. And sort of on your experiences with that, what would you like with Fleming's hotels, and like, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges, and how did you turn those into opportunities for success with relaunching the brand, but also growing the business?
Well, one of we had lots of challenges around people and technology. So we had to change our CRS. We had to change. We had difficulties getting the right people. So we had to go very fast into a process of digitalization. We had very bad infrastructures in our hotels, so we chose to invest in that. But we also, for our mid-scale hotels, for example, we launched an initiative which was called High Tech, High Touch. That means that we got rid of all the reception desk, and we were not a guinea pig. I looked very well at some very good other hotel brands who managed to do something very good with a self check-in. Kiosk check-in, not a digital check-in, because we didn't want to do that, but a self check-in. So instead of people coming to a reception desk, they go to a kiosk where they have to check themselves in, and there they get the key, and then they go to. That is something that very successful new hotel brands have done, and I thought this is the solution for us. This will give us the efficiency that we need. to be able to deal with the staff shortage, but also the efficiency that needs to be done. But we really wanted to make sure we didn't like the idea of the guest going directly to the room, because we still wanted to tell the story about Flemings. So we always want to make sure that there was somebody over there. That's why we were calling it high tech enabling high touch. So we basically let what I was saying before, the process being taken care of by technology, quickly self check in, and it's 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and basically have the opportunity to speak to the guest, to show the guest, to tell the guest, to engage with the guest while he's checking himself. And obviously, when you are a new brand and when you newly open a hotel, you don't have the history of guests that are used to something different. And that was a challenge for us, because we have lots of guests who say, why do I have time to do this? Why should I do this myself? But in the end, it was a very successful initiative that really helped us to deal with the challenge of not having staff. We needed to create a better guest experience on the check-in and the check-out process. So we not only did this self check-in, but we also, because we're in mid-scale hotels, we kill the checkout. So kill the checkout means that basically the guests didn't have to check out anymore. So whatever time you were investing, checking yourself in, the day after you could just drop your key and leave. So that was very important. Basically, I was always telling the story, what's the last time you checked out of a plane? I mean, you go into a plane and you leave when the plane has landed. You don't need to check out because you have paid everything. And of course, in upscale and luxury hotels, maybe you want to give your guests the opportunity to charge something to your room in the restaurant or whatever. But still, it is something that we don't have to do. I think there's tons of guests. I don't think this should be restricted to the mid-scale business. I think if you are in a luxury hotel, why not give the guests the opportunity not to have to queue for a checkout? Right? I think luxury is also freedom of choice. So I think this is a very concrete example of a challenge where we had to deal with, where we very quickly were able to bring in that efficiency. Another challenge that we had was we were not able to sustain all the restaurants that we were having. So instead of having all the restaurants open during the opening hours as they used to be, again, in the mid-scale hotels, not in the upscale hotels, we created self-service shops. So shops where you could get in and grab whatever you want and you pay. It was all based on a karma principle. So, you could actually, take your beer and walk away. But it was not closed, but people were basically, they could grab something, they scan it, they pay, and they go. We put self-service luggage storage. So basically, we didn't have the people anymore, in Munich or in Vienna, tourist destinations where on a Sunday everybody is saying, okay, can you hold on to my luggage because I'm only leaving at 5 o'clock. So the staff was having, to drag all the suitcases and find a place to store. We said, okay, we don't do that anymore. We provide a self-service locker system where you go, you put your touchless phone payment method on your phone or on your card. You open the locker, you put your suitcase, you close it. You pay a couple of euros. That's not the issue. So the investment is being paid back, but trying to think of efficient tools that were helping us to deal with the people challenge that we were having, but making sure that with the less people that we had, we could still be closer to the guest and still give that high touch experience. So that's maybe a good example of what we did.
Yeah, it's a very good example also, I guess, of using, more of like the technology solutions as like an enabler, but still maintaining that human touch. And yeah, to your point of the people making the place, sounds like the way to go. I had a few more questions, but and I'll cut this out, but like we are over time. I hope you don't have any other. Can we keep going?
Yeah.
Great. So I guess kind of looking, I think, at a more like broad perspective, and also based on your like commercial experiences working, with so many different on the brand side, but then also, for independent hotels. How would you say, in your experience, like the guest behavior is changing, like in recent years? What are some of the new trends that you see coming up, and how like the industry is evolving? And what would you say, what would be some of your recommendations, I guess, for hotels, and specifically independent hotels, to, because I think like there's a time, and there's still that challenge, of maybe on the distribution side, like relying too much on like third parties, or not really looking at like prioritizing too much the direct business. But like, what would be your recommendations on that, on how hotels can optimize that, and get more direct business, and grow that sustainably in the long term?
Yeah. There's a lot of things combined. I think first of all, we need to realize what's happening in the behavior of travelers, and how that is changing. We always like to talk about how the millennials are traveling, and how important they are. A few years ago, we were saying, okay, the Gen Zs. A few years ago, it was the millennials, and they, who are having a very significant part. When I was working for HRS, it was 20% of the global travelers, mostly in business travel, were millennials. So you have to make, that was also the reason why all these lifestyle hotels were becoming so popular, because people didn't want to stay in cookie cutter hotels. Now it's the Gen Z. I think there's lots, and I think it's not too difficult to learn about these behaviors. There's a lot of things written about that, but we should not forget a very important generation, and that is the share of the baby boomers. So the elder people. By 2050, 1 in 6. By 2050, first of all, they will outnumber this age group. Will outnumber the people between 14 and 24, and 1 in 6 people will be over 55. So if you have 1 in 6 people being over 55, and basically you don't keep that in mind in the way you are developing your hotel, then you are ignorant, because it's obviously very interesting to speak about the younger generation and their behavior, but keep in mind all the generations that are of significance. I think that's a very important part. And then there is the part of how do you how are people traveling? I was saying people are traveling. One of the things that is, when you're looking at the millennials and the Gen Zs, they are traveling differently. We know that, and they like to influence themselves by TikTok, for example. So it helps if you find ways to be able to create your visibility on a platform like TikTok, Instagram, etc. And it's very interesting to see how very traditional companies are doing this in a very successful way. We all know the airline Emirates. Emirates has managed to develop a very successful campaign. I saw the other day at a conference where this topic was presented, and they as a very, in the first way, the way we tend to look at Emirates, it's a bit old school and it's a bit traditional, but they have actually found a way to really nail this and this visibility. So this social media influencing is very, very important. It's also very interesting to see that there is even I think it's a Spanish group called Foodie Fame. They are creating food products that are related to famous people, people that the Spanish people know. There is one very big sports commentator who's very big on YouTube. So there's one, I think he has his own burger, and that burger in certain restaurants is creating, again, this is a very special story. There's a lot of the city hopping, the gig tripping. There's a lot of purpose-related travel that I was talking about before. and all these kind of things, they're influencing you need to be able to be aware of these kind of things. People are ready to travel very far for a culinary experience. People are very. During the guest-centric event in December, I gave the example of the Adele concerts. 10 concerts in Munich with 350 or 350,000 visitors during those 10 concerts. And that was all she did. And that means that attracts a lot of business. If you are not positioning your hotel like the example that I gave for Rock and Rio, then you're missing out on something. So this is where you have to find ways to understand how this part is working. But in the end, it all goes back to the things that we mentioned, the making sure you have the staff that is motivated and they know what your hotel is about, and have a good story. And but don't forget that there's other segments than just the basic transient traveler. The business travel is still a very important part of our business, and business travel has significantly changed. They not only because of the pandemic, but they always had the importance of duty of care. Big corporations, they would like you to be CSR compliant, so the green scores of your hotels, they are very important and very relevant. So you have to make sure that in this part you also know what you do. Otherwise, you will miss out on that, because there's big corporate companies, they will not contract hotels that cannot prove that they are CSR compliant. So this is something that is I think very important as well. I think you need to you always need to keep on. It's the KISS principle. You keep on asking yourself these 4 letters. KISS, and KISS stands for keep, improve, stop, and start. Everything that you need to continuously improve, reinvent yourself. So what is working? What do we need to do better? What should we really stop, and what should we start? We kill ourselves with anecdotal evidence. So somebody has said that our rooms are too pink, too bright, too small, too big. Who is that somebody, right? Don't look at anecdotal evidence, but look at the tools that are there to be able to measure the facts behind your business, right? There's no industry, I don't know many industries that have such a great detail in benchmarking possibilities. You can benchmark yourself for your financial performance, your ADR, your occupancy, your average rate, for your market shares. You can have your quality benchmarking, you against your competitors. So all these there's a lot of knowledge over there, and that's where we should focus on. We should be much less working that part of our business from our gut or because of what we hear. Make sure that you have the facts and the figures, because by learning those facts and figures, you can define what is missing, what you should improve, and what you should make in terms of plan to be able to get there. And I think that's something which is I think very critical. And get help. I mean, get help. Get every now and then get somebody with fresh pair of eyes look at your hotel, because they can help you. Of course, when you have been doing things for such a long time, sometimes when you have 3-4 hotels, right? Then let the general manager of one hotel stay, or your management team of one hotel, or some of those selected staff members stay in the other hotel, and let them just write down what they see and what they think, or even do an exchange of team members, you will be surprised what a fresh pair of eyes can do to a business. So I'm not sure if that's 100% answering what your question was, but I think these are critical things that I think very important to be able to run a sustainable hotel business.
No, it was very good. There was a lot of ground covered, but I did find it interesting. Yeah, I think the challenge is a lot is like balancing that, initial foundation of your brand, but then also growing and evolving with the different changes and like the consumer behavior and how the industry is going. So it was a lot of in-depth, I guess, covering of that area. So thank you for that. Kind of just sort of to on that sort of forward-looking note that we have, just do you mind like sharing, I guess, what your top predictions are for the industry in the next like 5 to 10 years and why?
Well, if I would know, I could make a business out of it. But I think there's a few logical things that are likely going to happen. I think first of all, there's going to be more travel. So that means that the people who are traveling more, they will also have more different experience. So they will probably become more critical. I mean, people used to, you probably saved for a trip and then you went on that trip. I mean, the current generation, they take the trip anyway, even if they don't have the money. So I mean, there's a complete different way. When I was 20 years old, I'd never been in a plane, right? So and now everybody has seen so much of the world. So I think there's more travel, more experience, and higher expectations. I think the role of the influencers is going to grow, but it has to be authentic. It has to. But it's people who have reach. People who have reach where lots of people are listening to. They will be very important in directing opinions into something good or bad. Right? We see lots of examples of that also in politics. But it's something I think is very important. One thing that we should absolutely not underestimate is that platforms such as the likes of Booking.com, Expedia, they will only become bigger. They will only become bigger. Because they become so much better. Because today you can not only book your hotel room, you can book your car, you can book your airplane ticket. I've done recently South Africa. I booked my accommodation through Booking.com. I booked my tickets to Booking.com and booked my car through Booking.com. They have the best customer service. They are able to provide a service because they are so big. They have that scalability. So they have been doing some double-digit growth over the last few years. I was checking out their numbers for 2024. Same thing over there. They will only get bigger. So it's something we just need to manage and need to understand. But that's a fact of life. Another thing that will go bigger is the soft brands. The soft brands, we all know the Autograph collection, the Curio collection, and so on. There's thousands of examples of that. They used to be only in the upscale and the luxury segment, but now they're also in the mid-scale. And even now, there's lots of examples. IHG and Hilton and Accor and Marriott, they have all launched their 2-3-star brands, and they are much more flexible in their standards. And that's going to change a lot because that is going to give hotels opportunities to have access to very big, loyal groups of travelers. And until a few years ago, the significance of the loyalty programs. Marriott has already, for a longer time, more than 200 million. Hilton has grown hugely, very fast, and they're now also over 200 million. But for only a few years ago, the majority of those loyalty members, they were in the US. But now more and more, they become more and more significant in Europe. So they will be loyalty and recognition and ease of booking. That's going to be a very strong factor for these brands. So if it can be, it might make sense to do that ROI calculation. The beauty is you can still keep your own identity as a brand like that, but it's one of the things that it's worth looking at if you are in a very competitive situation. So I think these are, and obviously there's the technology bit and all the other things that we have spoken about, but I think these kind of things they will from a, not so much from a consumer point of view, but for a hotelier, these are kind of things that I would keep in mind and I would focus on. Plus, of course, I would find ways to be efficient on my energy management, because that's an area that it's a very clear prediction based on what's happened in the last years. We don't want to be, we cannot afford the levels of energy prices, and I don't see them going down that quickly, and only this needs to happen. And then we have to deal with very high prices. The good thing is that Europe, that's a short-term prediction, Europe is financially very attractive for long-haul travelers. We are cheap for the American traveler. There's lots of American people who are maybe not in a very comfortable place right now because of results of elections, etc. So they love to spend time in Europe. Europe is cheap. The dollar towards the euro is attractive. Same for the Australian dollar. The Australian market is very important, and the Asian markets will recover. And especially the Southeast Asian market, the Chinese market, they have been showing some growth already, but especially on the leisure side, I think the Southeast Asian market, there's a lot of the numbers are so big, and the middle class numbers are growing so much, and that's the reason why in the biggest airplane acquisitions are done by new airline companies in India right now. There's 230 million Indonesians, where the middle class of that is a significant importance for us. So I think the international traveler, they will continue to be of importance. But the European traveler will more and more choose to travel by land and less by plane. So they will also do a lot of more short haul travel instead of always the long haul. And I know hotel or actually travel and tourism companies who are really focusing themselves on land-based travel. So anything you can do by train or by car, instead of stepping for everything in a plane, because especially in Europe, we are having, it's not always seen as a good thing if you take a plane that often. So being able to say that you have done your vacation by car or by train in a different way, I think that's also something that's going to become more and more important.
Yeah, it's a lot of things to unpack for hotels to think about, but yeah, very interesting in terms of how things are going and what's in store for the future. You touched on
one thing I forgot is make sure that you have proper chargers for cars at your hotels. I mean, electric vehicles, they will grow. And you just have to look out on the street. I think Portugal is a very good example where the growth of electric vehicles has been tremendous. But there's not a lot of hotels who have really properly organized the charging of the electric vehicles.
The Netherlands, to be fair, is really good with that as well. I saw, because I was there last year. My sister actually lives in Den Haag, so I visit quite a lot to see her. But like these options of like renting electric vehicles as well, and then it just markets. So I can't remember the exact name of the company now, but off the top of my head. But yeah, it's an interesting observation. One thing you touched on that I just wanted to dive into a little bit was sort of the mention of OTAs, and obviously they'll continue growing and things like that. But I think something that was a challenge, and specifically, I guess with and this was obviously a very unprecedented circumstance, but like when the world shut down because of COVID, and then, you had some of the big players, kind of issuing like mass refunds to people that had booked, but they weren't perhaps, sort of aligned with the hotel, and then the hotels had an issue with that. So I think kind of obviously, the big players aren't going away, and you have to work with them and leverage them to your advantage. But I think like as hotels kind of looking at their own channel and their own, like, as being the most important asset for their business, like what would be your recommendations for them to make sure that things are kind of balanced in terms of the distribution side, and making sure, that they optimize those direct bookings?
Yeah, well, you should never be dependent on one thing too much, right? At the same time, there's lots of resort hotels or tourism hotels that have been depending on 2 or 3 very big UK tour operators or German tour operators, etc. It's not something new, right? It's just different. I think you have to make sure that you find a good balance. You have to make sure that and I think Europe is regulating a lot. So basically, the price parity, etc., is something that is better managed, and you can now also make sure that the price that you have on your website is better than the one on the OTA. But yeah, make sure that you have the right balance. Look after your local market. Look after people always tend to forget that there is a very close to the hotel, and there's a lot of potential. And when you create your local relevance, and you get the people from the neighborhood in your hotel to come for lunch, or when their family is visiting, they stay in your hotel. There's so many reasons why you can develop in an efficient way your local business by just on a regular basis inviting people out of your neighborhood to open your doors, and you'll be surprised how many people will, because not everybody is having all the guest rooms that they like to have for family visiting, or maybe not everyone wants to have the guests in their house. So there might be lots of opportunities of very local room night opportunities as well. So there's, make sure you have a good balance, have a proper segmentation, and try not to be a price game, because the price is always easy. But the only thing that you do by making it a price game is pulling everything down. So that's something you should try to avoid, because that's not sustainable. I think there's especially in Portugal, there's a huge amount of international travel. So that is obviously always helping with growing markets. There's a bit of a risk that Portugal, that used to be a very good value destination in the high season, it's becoming very expensive. So that's also something that need to be managed well. But yeah, it's a combination of that, and like I said, I mean, if you I've always been a big advocate for independent hotels, and I'm especially in my World Hotels days, I said I did whatever I could to be able to keep the hotels, to maintain the hotels' independence, and giving them all the tools possible. But I think the reality today is that the brands, the 4 big brands are getting so big, and the 3-4 OTAs are getting so big. It's something that you might need to look at in a different way, because you can now look at it in a different way. It might make sense to consider maybe to be a bit stronger when you are part of something, part of a group of hotels. It doesn't have to be a franchise, but it can also be an association platform. Doesn't have to be always a fancy brand. There's some very not ego driven franchise systems. So you speak to those people and make your calculations and see if that's a way maybe to spread your risk a little bit between just putting all your eggs in one basket, and try and find ways to be creative and efficient.
So a lot of food for thought, but yeah, it makes sense. And I think, yeah, sometimes with the different, markets, and especially when things are booming and stuff, sometimes you kind of overlook what's on the back door, backyard and stuff. So yeah, the local angle, I guess, and focusing on even like Gordon Ramsay, whenever he goes to his hotels and stuff to, improve something in the kitchen or whatever, it's always like the locals, so bring the locals in. So yeah, very good.
I sorry, I maybe forgot one very important point. There's nothing that stops you, and nobody's forbidding you to, let's say you have a share of 4 out of 10 guests that are coming from an OTA, right? Nobody stops you to engage with that traveler and invite him to book direct. There's nobody, but you have to make sure that you have a proper solution. You have to make sure that the price on your website is then better than what you're getting on Booking.com. So that I've seen fantastic ideas of people being basically engaging with their guests that were booking through a different channel and motivating their guests to book direct. I mean, there's lots of very creative solutions to do that, and that's something that I would do regardless, because I think that's it's making a lot of sense, but and very easy.
Yeah. Do you have any specific examples on that to share today, or like on the, I guess, engaging those that come from the third-party platforms and incentivizing them to
so sign them up for your hotel program where they have access to preferential rates, your membership rates, etc. But you have to manage that properly. You have to make sure that rate is done better, because if it's not, so that you shouldn't reduce your rate, you should make your other rate higher, because otherwise you can
add more value.
But give an incentive to people to book direct by adding value, by having access to special rates. And because then you get these people in your database, you get them to accept that you can communicate with them, and then it's a different story. And then you can, and I've seen, it's a little bit of work to see, okay, well, what's my list of guests that have checked, that have booked via third party? Okay, well, speak to them and give them something. I've seen people, but it's already an old thing, have a post-it on the mirror, or write on the mirror, or put a QR code where people can sign up. At Fleming's, we created, we gave a key with a QR code on it where people could sign themselves up to the Fleming's family, and be part of the group with access to special rates, but also recognition.
All very good ideas, yeah, and a lot of food for thought, I guess, for hotels to think about. Well, we're actually, I think, at the end of our time today. But just before we go, just one last question that I like to ask everyone: what are you looking forward to the most, either on a personal perspective or professional perspective, or both? What are you most looking forward to in the coming months, and why?
Personal side, combined with professional. So I've decided to come back to Portugal and to stop doing that endless travel and between Portugal and Germany. So I have decidid to spend my life in your very beautiful country, and of course I hope to do that. I have some ideas of things that I want to develop from a business point of view. but I also hope that I will be able to do what I've been doing in the past in so many different destinations. But I'd love to be of help on any hospitality owner or business, to be able to help them to do some of the things that we've been talking about over the last many minutes. Because it's
Yeah.
you know, I am so convinced that coming back to if you do the right things and I believe that there's a direct correlation between guest satisfaction and the value that you can create through guest satisfaction. So it only works if you have people that are engaged to be able to give the great guest experience. If you have people that are able to give a great guest experience, guests are able to and willing to pay higher rates. You'll be less depending on very expensive channels, and you'll be able to create more value in your business. So that's ticking all the boxes. Happy guests, happy staff. They can only be happy guests if there's a happy staff, and if all of that combined helps the owner to develop a healthier business, then it's the perfect situation, and that's something where I'm very passionate about, and I will dedicate in a very relaxed way my time to help people and hotels doing this.
Excellent. Well, I wish you all the best for your new ventures and new things that you're looking at doing, and I'm sure you'll have a lot more stories to tell and a lot more inspiration to give. So yeah, I wish you all the best with that, and thank you very much also for joining today's conversation. It was a nice long conversation, but I really enjoyed it and learned a lot from you, and I'm sure our audience will as well. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you very much, Melissa. It was a pleasure, and see you soon. Cheers.